and I recommend it to the House.
Mr. Speaker.
Oh, Ross Robertson.
Kia ora tātou no reira, Mr. Speaker,
Kia ora.
and greetings to you in that fine office that you have there. Mr. Speaker, can I first of all acknowledge the work of both the Law and Order Select Committee of this Parliament and the last one for the work that they did on this piece of legislation. I think that they've managed to get the rights of gun owners and the distributors about right. I'm a strong advocate, Mr. Speaker, on disarmament issues and have become actively involved around the world in support of a treaty which seeks to ensure the more responsible control and transfer of conventional weapons. And I know, Mr. Speaker, that you, and I shouldn't bring into it, Mr. Speaker, so I know I shouldn't, but I have to say I know that you are a responsible firearms owner and probably know more about firearms than many of us inside this chamber. And we'll have a talk about that later on, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the Labour spokesperson for disarmament, small arms and light weapons, I'm aware of the issues locally and internationally. And as legislators, I believe that it's important for us to remember that there are constituents, not all of us will have these constituents, but there are constituents, Mr. Speaker, who've been directly impacted by irresponsible transfer and control of arms, which has resulted in the loss of life. And this bill that we are debating tonight, in which we, as in the Labour Party, support, amends the Firearms Act, or the Arms, sorry, Mr. Speaker, amends the Arms Act of 1983 to change the definitions and regulations about what constitutes military-style automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons. It places restrictions on the importation of air guns that look like real pistols, military-style semi-automatics, or restricted weapons. And it links, Mr. Speaker, with what is proposed with an arms trade treaty to prevent weapons being exported to governments or countries around the world where they should not go. Governments with poor records in terms of how they treat their own people. And as we here seek to control the importation of armaments, the world and those concerned enough seek an arms trade treaty and a diplomatic conference to be held in New York in July has the objective to ensure that the international arms trade industry is cleaned up. And as a nation state, Mr. Speaker, we need in this country to continue to play a constructive role on armaments, to lead. And as a Labour Party, we support any measures to prevent and mitigate the harm of military-style semi-automatic weapons to society. And in this country, we support the need to mitigate the costs of law enforcement as a result of those importations of weapons that look like military-style semi-automatics. And we do it for a reason, Mr. Speaker, and there has to be a reason why this legislation is necessary. It's necessary because of a court case here in 2010. And it's necessary due to the uncertainties of the definition of military-style semi-automatics as a result of that High Court case. I think it was Lincoln versus Police. It's also a mechanism, Mr. Speaker, through which the government hopes to reduce the number of incidents due to the weapons that look like military-style semi-automatics. And we support the need for there to be greater control, import controls on imitation weapons, in fact, Mr. Speaker, any weapons for that matter, given their increased use in the commission of crimes and the need for police resources. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that many of us who have close contacts with the police to our own constituencies will have anecdotal evidence of where imitation weapons have been used in results or in the use for burglary and robbery and the like. Mr. Speaker, in New Zealand we're told that the government asserts that the police estimates indicate that there could be up to one incident a week where a member of the public presents an air gun that looks like a real pistol, or a military-style semi-automatic, or restricted weapons requiring an armed police response, sometimes involving a call-out of the Armed Defenders Squad, and tightening input controls would reduce the easy availability of these replica firearms. And I think, Mr. Speaker, that's the reason why we in this House need to be responsible when it comes to the whole issue of firearms, because it is an area which requires controls to ensure that these particular types of weapons don't fall into the wrong hands. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, because I've had a number of people write to me on this issue, that one of the purposes for this bill is to ensure responsible ownership. But for those, I want to say to those firearms owners who are concerned, that it should be noted that the bill provides an appeal process to the district court where an owner disagrees with the classification of a firearm as a military-style semi-automatic weapon. So there is the opportunity here, Mr. Speaker, for gun owners who are concerned to have the ability to go to the district court. And I'm sure that there will be responsible firearm owners in this country who will use that mechanism. Can I draw to the House's attention in the bill, Mr. Speaker, our minority view? Because in the Select Committee, our members there proposed an initiative which was to aid in the consultation process in the form of an independent reference group. We asked that it be established to provide contestable advice to the Minister. However, we were advised that a wide-ranging reference group was outside the scope of the bill. So we had to accept that, Mr. Speaker, and we did. But we understand, of course, also that the police themselves, they also recognise the need to engage nationally with the New Zealand firearms community. They need to work together, like a community. And I'm reminded, Mr. Speaker, of the Maori saying, tātou tātou. It means together, together. And in that true sense of the word community, together we serve and together we prosper. And if we have the police working alongside the firearms community, I'm sure that we will have the opportunity and we will witness that this piece of legislation can work. Mr. Speaker, it is the expectation of members on this side of the House that this exploration will lead to the formal establishment of this advisory group. And if it's not established, we would expect the police to provide a robust rationale as to their decision. And we think that's important because there needs to be involvement of the community together. And as my colleague Chris Farfaui said, who our spokesperson on police said, Labor members will be monitoring the development of this issue closely. And we will. Because we believe it's for the betterment of the community that those sort of things occur. And if we have the police and the firearms community working together, then that can only be good for our society. Mr. Speaker, just let me conclude by saying that this legislation is necessary, and it's necessary because of the uncertainties created on the definition of military-style semi-automatic weapons as a result of the Lincoln versus Police case in 2010. We here, as responsible legislators, have brought this legislation to the House in order for us to ensure that the right things are done not only by gun owners but also by the police and for the betterment of the constituents and the communities that we represent here as legislators. For it is our job, Mr. Speaker, to serve our community, to represent the interests of those who elected us to this Parliament so that we in turn can express their views their concerns about issues that greatly affect them, and it's issues, Mr Speaker, that we can do something about, and I endorse this bill to the House and hope that the rest of the House will do likewise.
Speaker.
David Clendon.